Hello, welcome to this week's Forex Outlook here at XM.com. My name is Rafi Boyajian, currency analyst, and here with me is our chief economist, Michalis Florentiadis. So Michalis, we saw some very impressive gains for the euro this week. It's up more than 1% against the dollar. We had early in the week the receding fears about political crisis in Italy and to a lesser extent in Spain. But then we had another driver midweek. So what happened?
I think that what was the main event of the week was the market's expectation, which was caused by statements from ECB officials, such as the ECB chief economist, that it's possible that the ECB could announce the end date of its QE program during the meeting next week. This would certainly be a significant development that the ECB would have the confidence to do that. So we will see whether it's going to be at the end of the year, maybe a little earlier, and whether or not they announce a date at all, because we also have the data coming in a little bit weaker. They are showing a little bit of a slowdown, nothing too serious, but there are some indications of a slowdown on the Eurozone. So given the context of the Italian crisis and some uncertainty about trade, it would be a small risk by the ECB, I think, to give a date to its QE program from now, because if they go back on that promise, it would look very bad. Nevertheless, the euro rallied, although it's coming under some corrective pressure today.
Right, and this week we saw an increase in trade tensions once again. We've got the G7 summit coming up later today. Today's summit taking place in Canada. How much of a risk does that pose on the US dollar?
Yeah, the US dollar came in this week with very good, with a lot of help from the very strong employment report, but it failed to capitalize on this, and I think that the trade worries and are one reason for that. I don't think that anything is going to come out of the G7 meeting. The market's expectations are pretty low, given the acrimony before the meeting. It would be a big surprise if there is a positive outcome. But for now, we are seeing that the market is expecting more tension, although I don't think it's yet pricing in a serious negative scenario that in the end, that for the moment could be mostly posturing, and we'll see whether something more serious happens.
And another currency not doing too badly this week is the UK pound. We had some upbeat PMI figures early in the week. There was a bit of a wobble though yesterday on the regarding Brexit developments. So what's the outlook for the pound in the near term?
I think it's very interesting that the pound has managed to find some support around the current levels. So it managed to hold its ground fairly comfortably this week. Maybe the weaker dollar also helped it to do that. But I think the positive services PMI, which was much better than expected, is also allowing pound bulls to hope for an August rate hike. So if this happened, this could be something that could help the pound. And with respect to Brexit, we haven't had very positive developments. There is a lot of uncertainty still, but the market seems to expect that in the end there will be a Brexit deal that will be relatively positive for the UK economy.
And so a quick word about the Australian dollar, because it did reach a 6-week high a couple of days ago, but it's now heading lower once again. We had some very positive numbers out of Australia as well as China, which supported the Aussie. What should be watching out for the Australian currency?
I think it was a bit of a mixed bag for the Aussie this week. We had good retail sales, we had good GDP numbers, we had positive Chinese export data, as you mentioned, but the RBA was a little dovish in its statement, of course keeping rates unchanged, but it looks like any change in interest rates is far off into the future, and at the same time we see that the Aussie is vulnerable to trade tensions and risk of sentiment, absolutely. So yeah, at the end of the day, the Aussie was little changed versus the US dollar. So given this background, Rafi, what should we watch out for next week? I'm sure the big central bank meetings are the most important ones, but...
Yeah, precisely. We've got the Fed FOMC meeting on Wednesday. They're expected to raise rates, but of course, investors will be more interested in the dot plot chart, whether or not the Fed is going to signal 4 rate hikes in total for this year instead of the current projections of 3. We're also going to have a European Central Bank policy meeting as well, which, as you mentioned, we did get some signals that we could see an end to the QE, and we're also going to have Australian job numbers, UK job numbers. It's also going to be important week for the UK pound, because apart from job numbers, we're going to have inflation, retail sales as well coming out of the UK, and in the US as well. It's going to be not just central bank meeting, but data is going to be watched too. We've got inflation and retail sales also coming out of the US.
So it sounds like an action-packed week. Lots of things to watch, particularly the Fed and the ECB. Maybe the early part of the week we will have some reactions to the G7 meeting. So what's going to happen in that meeting, and whether any insults about trade were exchanged, we'll have to see, but should definitely be interesting and quite volatile. Thank you very much, Rafi. Thank you everyone for watching, and have a great day.